Hey, welcome, friends and family. Super excited to be here with you today with this Motivate with Elevate lesson. And what we're continuing to go through is how to win friends and influence people. And today, we're continuing to have this conversation around how to win people to your way of thinking. So, how to win people to your way of thinking. And when you think about that, it's not going to be an argument, a sure way of making enemies and how to avoid it. So, one thing that we know is that by arguing your point, you're never probably going to win them to your way of thinking. If anything, you're going to distance them from your way of thinking. So, how do we win people over to our way of thinking? And they put a poem in this book I thought was kind of cool. He said, "Men must be taught as if you taught them not." And you were a teacher for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
So, men must be taught as if you taught them not, and things unknown proposed as things forgot. Over 300 years ago, Galileo said, "You cannot teach a man anything. You can only help him to find it within himself." That's another great coaching nugget. And as Lord Chesterfield said to his son, "Be wiser than other people if you can, but do not tell them so." Socrates said repeatedly to his followers in Athens, "One thing only I know, and that is that I know nothing." So, Casey, some just great food for thought right
Yeah,
there, isn't it?
great lessons in that, and I think the whole point of this chapter, um, is just having respect for other people's opinions. We might not understand them; they may not make sense to us, but they make sense to them, and there may be some correction that has to take place
Mm-hmm.
with some of those things, but to do it in an tactful way and understand that there's a reason they felt this way or that way, and
Mm-hmm.
and not just trample on that. And um, I think we all could, and I'll ask you, how do you feel when you get around, um, you get around that personality of the person who wants to pretend like they know it all, and they've got it all figured out, and you can't tell me nothing because I'm smarter than you anyway. I mean, how does that make you feel when you get around somebody like that?
I immediately think back to when I was in probably high school. There was a kid that, um, like, if you ever did it, he did it. And he did it bigger and better. And it's
Hmm.
like you could never not do anything that he didn't already experience, do, or,
The one
and
upper.
yeah, and it was just, I think everybody had the feeling with that guy that he was just kind of a know it all. And so he was inflated, but nobody ever took him seriously. So I always kind of thought of that man, for lack of a better word, we'll say his name was Danny, for lack of a better name. And I think everybody always thought he was like the boy that cried wolf. Like nobody believed him. And today, when I'm in the room or around people that exaggerate or act like they know more than they do, or even if they do know more, but you got to know they know more, those kind of people are just unattractive to me.
Yeah,
I have no desire to hang around with them too long.
yeah. There's a sense of arrogance and ego
Yep.
that tends to go with that most of the time, and this book is 100% against ego.
Hmm. Hmm.
um,
Let the ego
you know,
go.
yeah,
That's right.
yeah.
Well, you said here too. I like he talks about the way he says there's magic, positive magic in such phrases as "I may be wrong," "I frequently am." "Let's examine the facts."
Hmm.
What a great approach towards when somebody isn't seeing things the way you are. And I think that's what I like about how you just said that. When you can know there's a reason why they're saying it, that
Hmm.
there's a reason why they're defending those words are coming out of their mouth like that, even though it may not logically make sense to you,
Hmm.
who's maybe's done it for 10, 15 years, and you've got somebody else that maybe they're brand new to it. Uh, but there's magic, positive magic in such phrases as "I may be wrong," "I frequently am." Let's examine the facts.
Right.
How
Yeah.
can you argue with that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's we all know people that would still argue with that, but for the most part, especially in a a professional setting, um, that's 100% way to go about it. I mean, it's
Mhm.
it's a it's a come beside. It's a
Mhm.
um, I don't. you don't necessarily agree with what's being said. You feel like there's some error that's taking place in some kind, but you're not just saying, "No, I'm the superior. This is wrong," or "No,
Mhm.
I've got more experience than you.
Mhm.
That's not how this works.
Mhm.
Just trust me and do it the way I'm telling you." And then there's resentment that builds when you
Resentment.
handle things that way.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
you may not know it at the time,
Mhm.
but it's kind of like that. It's kind of like that small offense that we didn't talk about, and
Right.
then it festers, and then there's another small offense that we didn't talk about, and it festers, and eventually it gets to the point where it's just a big explosion, and it's really
Yes.
over something small, but
Yes.
it's several small things that has built
Added
up
up.
to this, and
Yeah.
it's the same way with this. It's you may not tell that there's any resentment that's made when you handle something in that manner, but you do it two, three, four, five, six times,
Mhm.
and that resentment
Mhm.
builds each time, to the point that now you've got somebody that doesn't like coming to work, that doesn't
Mhm.
like the environment that's created, that doesn't feel safe in the environment that was created, and the person who's doing that has no idea that that's even been done.
Maybe they're right now thinking about it's time to get out of this marriage or out of this relationship, or possibly they're thinking, yeah, I just they can take this job and shove it.
Hmm.
And where the leadership sometimes can be right in a workplace, they can come across the wrong way, and in a marriage
Yeah.
and with children, it's delicate. And I even enjoy doing that, taking that approach even with kids.
Hmm.
Because I think that's one of the quickest ways to build them up. It's like, well, he's actually taking time to hear what I said, and he questioned himself. I might be wrong. In fact, I often am. Let's take a moment to examine the facts. And then you walk them through it. They've let their guard down.
Hmm.
Now they're not defensive or guarding their stance. They've let their guard down because you've let your guard down. And there's been times where there's no doubt we went through the facts. And like you said, because I didn't just make a rash decision to overreact when I thought somebody was wrong. Took time to think it through. Often I do see, okay, could see why you said that, and maybe that is a different way of going about it that I
Yeah.
didn't even understand. Now I see why you're saying that, and I love it when we're able to say that because that gets us back on the same page moving forward.
Right.
But if they are off balance, then at that point at least I have a time to explain, hopefully logically, not emotionally, why I'm seeing it the way I'm seeing it.
Yeah.
And perhaps if they're open to that, then they can say, okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. And it roots the um I guess the adjustment, the correction
Hmm.
gets rooted even deeper because you took
Hmm.
time to actually, dig through the issue, correct the issue,
Yeah.
give the why behind the issue. Um, and it makes that so much stronger that that's probably one of the last times that you'd ever have to deal with that situation with that particular person, moving forward, regardless of what it is. Not to say
Hmm.
that there would never be another one, but it's going to be, slim to none moving
Well,
forward.
and if you're that type of leader, that yeah, you may know what's right, but not everybody else has got to know. What I like what he said to
Right.
his son, be wiser than everybody else, but don't try to make sure they don't
Yeah.
try to impress that upon people.
Yeah.
So when you can take that approach and come under, sometimes you can salvage relationships
Hmm.
that most people won't have because somebody that's easily offended, somebody that can't be wrong, somebody that's always got to defend their side, those people will generally bounce from job to job. They'll generally bounce out of relationships because they're too easily offended. But sometimes if you can take that lower approach, you can help somebody maybe get through
Yeah.
that's struggling. And at a certain age, we probably all have some of those tendencies. Even at 48 today, I mean, I'm I'm not exempt from that. I'm still learning through this book how to better behave in those situations because it's so easy. If me and Lindsay are having a disagreement, for me to just defend my side.
Hmm.
But
Yeah. Well, I would say that's the human reaction,
mhm,
right? But the
mhm,
point of learning from a book or an example or anything like that, the point of growth is to get outside of the human reaction, right?
mhm.
The typical human reaction is not ever going to be growth related because that's just not. the beings that we are.
Mhm.
It takes something
Mhm.
beyond that
Yeah,
to want to grow and do better.
John Maxwell's always said he attributed this to his heart attack I think he had when he was 55. But he said people don't change until they hurt bad enough to know they have to or need to, or they learn enough to know they need to change.
Right.
So we're talking about let's try to get on the learning side. Why throw marriage away? Why throw a good working relationship away when it might just take a little humbleness to be the one to go first and say, you know what? I could be wrong. In fact, I often am. Let's just examine the facts.
Yep.
And if you can do that with a good conscience, even knowing you're probably right, probably 98% sure you're right, but you'll give that 2% of doubt,
Mm-hmm.
that's just going to open up that
Yeah,
opportunity.
and you're breeding in a understanding of collaboration,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
We're working together.
Mm-hmm.
You're not working for me necessarily. We're
Mm-hmm.
working together for the
Right,
same
right,
common goal.
right.
Um,
You're building a bridge,
mhm.
as our friend Duke said today,
Yeah.
not a tunnel.
Yep. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And we're making it, coming beside, learning together, and it's pulling through. And you'll find that the teaching, or I found in my experience, you know, being able to break that subject down and teach it becomes a lot easier when you take that approach,
Mm-hmm.
because you'll be able to find something that can relate
Mm-hmm.
to
Mm-hmm.
that person, because you're learning about them, and at the end of the day, you're going to learn something about them, because again, there's something from the way they was raised or an experience they had or a preconception. There's something that's making them
Mm-hmm. Tick
thinking the
like that.
opposite way.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and as you get closer and you come beside and you do that, if you're paying attention, you'll learn those things. So principle 2 that we're talking about today is show respect for the other person's opinion and never say you're wrong.
Amen. And guys, these are magic words. I think they are definitely magic words. I may be wrong. In fact, frequently I am. Let's examine the facts. Let's practice that this week. Get together next week and see how it goes. Thank you all very much.